You're listening to the Magnetic Boss Podcast, where badass entrepreneurs come together to share authentic conversations. We're ditching the cookie-cutter approach to building a business and valuing collaboration over competition. I'm your host, Calandra Martin, boy mom, coffee-obsessed coach, speaker, and leader. I help women radiate their brilliance in the online space and create magnetic brands. We are here to have fun, do work we love, and enjoy the ride. Now let's dive in. Welcome back to the Magnetic Boss Podcast. I want to start off today's episode by just taking a second to thank you for allowing me to be in your ear. If you have been listening to this podcast since the beginning, you will know that this is a passion project of mine. The podcast is something that I had been wanting to start for years, really. I started listening to podcasts for personal development and for business growth back in the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. And podcasts were something that really gave me as a business owner the opportunity to learn and to grow without having to make a monetary investment. And I've always been drawn to the flexibility of having a podcast or having the ability to listen to a podcast, because chances are you're listening to this episode right now while you're driving, while you're doing the dishes, maybe you're chasing a child around. I know that that's exactly what I was doing and still do when I listen to some of my favorite podcasts. So I just want to take a second and thank you and let you know that I am so fucking grateful to have you here, to be able to provide you with some free value and tangible tips and resources and really amazing conversations with other entrepreneurs and badass women. So thank you for being here. If you are loving the show, I would love for you to take 5 seconds, go over to iTunes and leave a rating and review on the podcast. Honestly, this is so helpful. Between that and you taking a screenshot of the podcast and tagging me on Instagram, this is really how we grow the audience, and it's how I'm able to continue to show up week after week and produce high value content for you. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Now today, I want to dive into a really important topic. And this is something that we all do as human beings. It is within our human nature to do this. And I know that especially when the seasons are changing, when we are in a world that feels a little bit confusing and uncertain, it's so common for all of us, whether we're entrepreneurs or not, to place this high level of pressure on ourselves to do, right? And when we do this, we really put ourselves in this mindset of, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I should, be growing my email list or doing webinars or whatever it might be, right? There's probably 1,000,001 things that you have in your mind that you think you should be doing. And chances are these ideas that you have, these expectations that you've set of yourself, are really a representation of how you are perceiving the world, how you are perceiving other people, and comparing yourself to other people in the online space. It is so common for us to do this as entrepreneurs, especially because we're on social media all day, every day, and we're seeing what other people are doing, right? Now, the reason that I wanted to bring this topic to the podcast for you today is because in my own business and life, I am in a stage of growth, in a stage of navigating what is coming next and getting ready for a really big up level, getting ready for a shift. Because with the change of seasons, with the change of schedules, especially because of COVID, every time fall comes around this time of year, I notice that I need to and desire to start making some changes to how I am showing up. And I know that you probably are feeling this too, whether it's because of the season change or maybe something has changed in your life recently. And so anytime something comes up for us, anytime we need to make a pivot or redirect our energy and attention in our businesses, we want to be very mindful of the shoulds that we're placing on ourselves, right? So over the last couple of months in my business with summer and COVID and having extra responsibilities in my personal life, taking care of a toddler more than usual, having him home with me full time for the beginning of the summer, there was a lot of change that I wasn't necessarily prepared for. And what that meant in my business was that some things had to get taken off of my plate in one way or another, right? I had limited time and I had to navigate how to spend my time in the most effective way, right? And we've talked about time management and scheduling before on the podcast. That's not what this episode is about, but it goes hand in hand with the shoulds that we place on ourselves, right? So I had this expectation for myself and my business in the beginning of quarantine period when we were staying at home and my son didn't have preschool, where I had the expectation that I was still going to get everything done in a day that I normally would in about half of the time. So for a little perspective here, normally in my business, I work 3 days a week and I work from 8 to 5 on those 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that's when my son is in preschool. And then on the days that he's home with me on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I will generally work in the morning before he wakes up. So between 5 and 7 a.m., which I know sounds crazy. I work super early. I am a morning person. I love getting up early in the morning. And then I would generally work in the afternoon during his nap time. Well, here's the real kicker. My son is resisting naps. We're starting to phase out naps in the afternoon, which means that sometimes I would get 2 hours to myself to be able to get some work done or get something done around the house or maybe even take some time for self-care. And that time was generally, on most days, getting cut out of my day. So when quarantine hit and when everything shifted and I had my son home with me full time, I went from having the entire day, 3 days a week to work on my business to having maybe 3 hours each morning to be really dialed in and focused on what I was supposed to be doing in my business, right? Some of these tasks might have looked like recording a podcast episode for you, like I'm doing right now, which if you have children, you will know that recording a podcast is pretty much impossible to do in peace and quiet if you have children at home. Some of the other tasks that I would normally do throughout the day would be responding to emails, sitting down and working on design projects, creating content, all of these different things that we do as entrepreneurs, right? And so when my time was cut basically in a third, I'm not good with math, I was then really thrown into the position of having to reevaluate how I was showing up in my business. And to be completely transparent and fully honest with you, that was messy and I completely burned myself out in the first couple of weeks. Right? Nobody is perfect, myself included. And when it came to time management and when it came to setting expectations, I overdid it and I got really frustrated with myself, right? I got really frustrated with not being able to get the things done that I wanted to get done, and seeing other people showing up and having everything seemingly put together in the online space, because I'm a human too. And I started shoulding on myself. And I know that you probably have been in this position too. So I want to share with you some of the tips that I have for navigating this, for shifting your mindset around this, and really allowing yourself to trust in your own process. You've heard me say this before on the podcast. It's one of my favorite mantras of all time. Trust in the process and really own up to the fact that you have everything already that you need to grow your business. And it's just a matter of prioritizing and getting really, really intentional. So what I encourage you to do, if you're feeling like you are constantly in a state of having so much on your plate that you don't know where to start, feeling like balls are dropping because there's not enough time in the day, or you don't have enough resources available to you, or whatever it might be, and you are feeling this sense of, well, I should be doing this and I should be doing that, I want you to first recognize that that's happening, right? And this might show up in your life in a couple of different ways. I know for me, it really shows up as me getting kind of snippy with my family, right? I start to respond and be a little bit short and snarky, or I just get really frustrated really easily because I'm overextending myself. Because for me, when I have a lot on my plate, I know that I'm capable of doing it all, right? I am capable of being the freight train and plowing through and getting things done. But it's very easy for me to get wrapped up in that. And so if I am in a state of shoulding on myself, then that turns into me leaking my energy everywhere and feeling depleted and then taking it out on other people that I love. So whatever that might look like for you, the more that you pay attention to and are aware of what this might present as in your life and in your business. Maybe it means that you're just dropping balls and forgetting to do things, or not following through with what you said you were going to do, right? Notice what happens when you are shitting on yourself. Maybe you're getting physically sick. I know that I often do this with burnout. If I push too hard for too long, my body tells me to slow the fuck down and to start taking care of myself. So really be paying attention to what happens. What are the warning signs? What are the indications that you are shitting on yourself, that you are overextending what it is that you are doing in a day or in a week, right? And then when this comes up for you, I want you to take 5 minutes, and I know that you're busy, right? I know that you're busy. I know that you have a lot to get done. I know that it's really easy to get wrapped up in this idea that if we just do more and hustle and grind, then we're going to get ahead, right? If we just check everything off of the to-do list, then we're going to get ahead. But I want to tell you that it is a proven fact, and I have tested this, that when you slow down and create a plan and do some of this mindset work, it's going to give you that freedom, flexibility, and space to do things in a more thought out and intentional manner, and it won't feel like you were trying to juggle 3 dozen eggs in one hand, right? I can just picture like holding a bunch of eggs in your hand and you're walking from one side of the kitchen to the other and you're trying not to drop any of them because they're going to explode on the floor. That's something that I envision when I think of shitting on yourself and having a huge to-do list. So I want you to slow down, right? Slow down, take 5 minutes. It can be something where you set a timer for yourself. Maybe you have a playlist that you are working with. I know some people like to have music going when you're like sitting down and doing something to get focused. Maybe you're making yourself a nice warm beverage and setting up your space so that you can sit down and do this and feel good about it. But I want you to take 5 minutes. This is the whole point here. Take 5 minutes with a notebook. Pen and paper. I am telling you, this is one of the most impactful shifts that you can make. If you are doing everything digitally, just try writing it down on pen and paper. Our brains are going to really perceive the information and retain the information differently than if you're just writing it on like a Google Doc or something else. So grab a notebook, and I want you to brain dump. And we've done this exercise on the podcast before, but honestly, a brain dump is one of my favorite things to do, especially when it comes to overwhelm, when it comes to reaching burnout, when it comes to trying to juggle a lot of things in your business. There's so many great opportunities to use a brain dump list, but this is going to, we're going to expand on this. Okay. So sit down, make a brain dump of everything that you feel like you should be doing. Okay? I want you to get really honest with yourself. On a day-to-day basis, what do you feel like you should be doing in your business, right? So we're going to call it out, right? We're going to call out the elephant in the room. We are going to make it really clear to ourselves what the mind chatter is, because this is what happens is we are scrolling on Instagram or scrolling on Facebook. We see so-and-so is running an ad, or so-and-so is hosting a webinar, or somebody just launched this new program or offer and it's structured differently than the one that you have. And so suddenly you think, oh, I should be doing it this way. Right? And then this happens day in and day out. And through our busy to-do list, we have in the back of our minds, well, I actually should be doing this. Well, I actually should be doing this. And why am I not moving the needle forward? Maybe it's because I should be doing this, right? Let me know, tag me on Instagram if you have felt this sense of, well, I should be before. I want to know what comes up for you. Okay, so I want you to make this brain dump of all of the things that you think you should be doing. And then I want you to grab a highlighter or a different colored marker, a Sharpie, whatever it might be. I like to use bright colored highlighters for this type of exercise because it brings my attention to the paper. But grab a highlighter or a colored marker and I want you to either circle or highlight out of this massive brain dump list, what are the top priorities, right? What are the things that you do every single day that are non-negotiable? So this might be attending client calls. Maybe you're a coach and you have client calls 3 days a week. Well, that's a pretty big priority, right? If people are paying you for your time, you absolutely have to have that follow through and be doing the things in your business that your clients are paying you for. So for me, it's design work, right? I have it in my calendar every single day that I am working, that I have a block of time to work on design work, right? That's not my whole day. It doesn't consume everything that I do because as a business owner, there's a million things that I do, but it is one of the most important pieces, right? It's a non-negotiable. It is a priority that I get the designs done for the clients that are paying me, right? So take a look at your list and see what is on there that is a non-negotiable. It absolutely has to happen. Right? So maybe it is recording a podcast. I'm recording this podcast right now. It's a non-negotiable for me. I release these podcast episodes for you every single Wednesday, which means that you better bet that even if I have a full plate, I'm making this happen, right? As I'm recording this episode, I'm sitting in the parking lot outside of the coffee shop because I'm going to go work for a few hours. But the podcast episode is one of my top priorities, right? It is at the top of my should be doing list. So with your pretty marker, go through and circle or highlight the things that are non-negotiables. Then I want you to, on another sheet of paper, create a table, if you will. Write down on the left-hand side of your paper all of your non-negotiables, and on the right-hand side of your paper, all of the other things that you think you should be doing, okay? And just draw a line down the middle of that paper so it's really, really clear. Non-negotiables on the left, extra tasks on the right? You can give them a name. Maybe it is like aspire to do or whatever you want to call it. Now, I want you to be thinking about your day-to-day schedule as you're doing this. I want you to be thinking about what is realistic for you to be putting on your plate. So this is where I want you to go back and listen to the time management episode, because I'm not going to give you a full training on that today, but it is super important through this exercise that you know how to effectively manage your time. Because if you are committing to all of these non-negotiables and you're taking things from the right side of the paper and putting them on the left, it is crucial and essential for you to know that you have the ability, the time and space, the energy, the capacity to get these things done, right? On a day-to-day basis. Maybe some of these things are like mini projects that are going to take you, let's just say 2 hours, right? It might take you 2 hours to create your new opt-in and design it. Maybe you're spending 2 hours in Canva, which, let me just tell you, please don't waste your time. Hire somebody, outsource that shit. But be mindful of how much time these non-negotiables are going to take you. And as you're doing this, I want you to be asking yourself, why is this a non-negotiable? What makes this so important in my life or business that it is at the top of my priority list? Because what often happens, like I said before, we get busy scrolling, we think of all of these grand ideas, and then by the time we're done creating whatever it might be or figuring out this new thing, we come to realize that it actually wasn't all that beneficial. It actually was kind of a waste of time, right? So I can give you 1,000,001 examples of times that I've done this and ways that I have done this in my own business. I am not preaching to you today. I am speaking from experience, right? We can very easily waste our time on the shoulds, quote unquote shoulds, that we think we need to be doing, and then come to realize that it was kind of a waste, right? So it is really important for you to recognize the reason behind why you were doing what you were doing. And when you take the time to do this exercise, when you take the time to get intentional and really sit with all of these ideas that you might have, I promise you that this is going to help you gain perspective. It is going to help you gain perspective as to what is truly important, where you are spending your time, whether or not it is worth your time and energy. And it's going to open up other ideas, more aligned ideas for you in your business. So for example, in my business in the past, I have thought to myself, it would be so fun to have an opt-in that not only brought people onto my mailing list, because that's the goal, that's the intention, right? To have an opt-in is to grow your mailing list. We just talked about this a couple episodes back. It would be really fun to do that, but it would be even better if it were something that were interactive and that people could easily get excited about, right? So that was my idea. I should have a really amazing, incredible opt-in that converts and brings aligned people to my mailing list. Now, I had this on my to-do list for a really long time, like far too long. This podcast is actually another great example of the should, right? I had it on my to-do list for a really long time to start a podcast. I should have a podcast. But the should does not turn into a desire or a want until you become aligned with that idea, right? So for a little while, a long while, if we're being totally honest, I loved the idea of having a podcast, right? I really wanted to be that entrepreneur that had a podcast and had the well-polished brand and all of these things, right? And I sat with that for a really long time. And it wasn't until I allowed myself to align into that vision and really get excited about it that I made it happen. Okay, so what I want you to be taking into consideration when you're looking at your list that you just made I want you to look at your top priorities, your non-negotiables, and ask yourself why they're important. And then I want you to look at the right-hand side of your list of all of the shoulds and really tune into, does this feel aligned for me? Does this excite me? Is this something that I want to do right now? Because when it comes to running a business, we can so easily get caught up in the idea that everything has to be immediate, right? We want immediate results. We want the overnight 6-figure launch. We want the huge guest speaking opportunities, whatever it might be, right? We always want to rush the process. And that is why trust the process is my favorite mantra ever. Because what I want you to recognize on this list of shoulds is that it doesn't all have to get done right away. And if it doesn't feel good to you, if it's something that you just saw somebody else doing, so you thought that you should be doing it too, if it doesn't feel good to you, then toss it in the fuck it bucket, okay? Like, you do not have to run your business the same way that somebody else does. You do not have to have the same product suite or structured offer as somebody else. Because if it is not aligned for you, if it doesn't feel good, then you're just going to feel like you're pushing water uphill anyways, and it's going to be a massive waste of your time. So I know that that's a little harsh and I'm getting a little sassy, but I really strongly believe in this, that if we feel like we should be doing something, but it doesn't light us up, it doesn't get us excited, it doesn't spark that curiosity or sense of creativity in your business, then it's probably just going to fall flat anyways, right? Now, this isn't to say that everything in your business should feel exhilarating and super exciting, right? There's some things in my business that I fucking hate doing. Let's be totally honest. Sometimes I want to poke my eyeballs out when I have to look at my QuickBooks account and do some bookkeeping, right? That is not fun for me. I don't enjoy it. It's not something that sparks creativity in me. But as a business owner, I know that it needs to get done. It is a non-negotiable. So this is why it's really important for you to be making this two-sided list of the things that are non-negotiables, that are part of your business, an integral part of your business. And then to have the shoulds on the other side of the list, and the ones that light you up, you get to pour your time and energy into when you have the time and space for those things, as you make the time and space for those things. But it doesn't mean that the right-hand side of your list, all of the shoulds, have to be a part of your business. So I'm hoping that this is making sense to you. I am hoping that you are feeling fired up about this and you will take action on this exercise. I would love for you to, again, take a screenshot of this episode if you are really feeling jazzed up. Tag me on Instagram. And then I want you to also go ahead and, if you complete this exercise, if you make your list of non-negotiables and then you make your list of shoulds, right? Go ahead and post it in our Facebook community, the Magnetic Boss Collective. We have a free community space on Facebook. It is a lot of fun. We have weekly prompts, opportunities for you to promote your business. And I want this conversation to be something that we are all having. Because I can say with experience, like I mentioned before, when there is a time of change, whether it's a feeling the seasons change and wanting to redirect the way that you do things in your business, or it's dealing with some drastic schedule change in your life because of COVID, whatever it might be, anytime we are shifting as we evolve in our business, it's really important to check ourselves on this, to really be paying attention to where we are shoulding all over ourselves, because it doesn't feel good. It's not a good place to be in. And if you take the time to get intentional, to look at this, to open yourself up to this conversation, then it's going to allow you to move the needle forward. You're going to start feeling that momentum again in your business because you will have clarity. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Please go ahead and take a screenshot, tag me on Instagram with this episode, and pop inside the Facebook community. Let me know how this exercise went for you. I would love to hear your feedback. Go ahead and leave a rating and review on iTunes if you are loving the content that we are sharing over here. And I will talk to you next week with another amazing guest interview. So I will see you very soon.